Last night, the Senate passed a piece of legislation that will suspend the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, all while simultaneously cutting down on federal spending. This bill is the result of a bipartisan agreement that President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy were able to hammer out to steer clear of what would have been an unprecedented U.S. default. And as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, quote, "The consequences of default would have been catastrophic. It would almost certainly cause another recession. It would be a nightmare for our economy and millions of American families," end quote. As a clear sign of endorsement from both Democrats and Republicans, the voting came in at 63 to 36. But what does this bill actually do? What compromises were made to get this deal done, and how will this affect your wallet? Well, today we're going to answer all of those questions. But before we get into it, since this bill is over 99 pages long, and I'm currently probably editing this at like 2 in the morning to get it to you as soon as possible, if you appreciate all the time and effort I put into reading this ridiculously long document and making this video for you, consider giving this video a like and subscribing if you want more educational business content. Now let's jump into what this debt ceiling bill actually is, and if it's really as big of a deal as people are saying it is. First, the most important part. The most important part of the deal is the fact that the Fiscal Responsibility Act, as the bill is called, suspends the breach of the debt ceiling. This suspension would last until January of 2025, meaning that future adjustments to the debt ceiling will be taken care of by whoever is president in 2025, and the debt ceiling won't be a major issue in the election race. Additionally, it means that I won't have to talk about it for a couple of years, so that's kind of nice. It also caps non-military spending and will only allow discretionary non-military spending to increase by 1% a year. To be clear, when we talk about discretionary spending, we're talking about all the spending that is not Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. These 3 programs are not considered to be discretionary, even though they are huge chunks of the budget. This bill will allow Republicans to get to say that they're reining in rampant Democrat spending on the campaign trail this next election season, when really both sides are just agreeing not to spend more than 1% more next year on 1/3 of the budget. So it's not like this bill has revolutionarily changed the government's fiscal strategy. Instead, it's kind of like saying, I'm spending way too much on eating out. I know, I'll just spend the exact same amount next year. If you spent too much this year, you aren't fixing the problem by spending the same amount next year. Second, protecting veterans' medical care. This deal maintains total funding for veterans' health care and increases support for the PACT Act's Toxic Exposure Fund by nearly $15 billion for the fiscal year of 2024. If you don't know what the PACT Act's Toxic Exposure Fund is, it's basically guaranteed medical funding for conditions caused by exposure to harmful chemicals while these people were in service to our country. The name might sound familiar because last summer it wasn't going to pass in Congress, and then Jon Stewart came out of nowhere and shamed everyone into getting it done. Third, taking back that money. Another theme of the bill is taking back money that had previously been allocated to other places. For example, the bill aims to claw back about $11 billion of unspent COVID-19 relief funds. Additionally, the bill will reallocate some of the funds that the Biden administration gave to the IRS. Now, this is where you'll see some sensationalized headlines saying the debt ceiling bill is defunding the IRS. As a matter of fact, when I was working on this script, I asked Microsoft's AI Bing about the bill, and it claimed that the bill would rescind nearly $71 billion that Congress is providing the IRS to upgrade its technology and boost hiring. The truth is a bit less impressive. The bill will immediately remove $1.4 billion from the IRS, and then over the next 2 years, reallocate $20 billion more to other non-defense spending programs. So Bing telling me that they're taking away nearly $71 billion when really they're taking away $21 billion is kind of like all of our friends who say they're 6 foot when they're clearly 5'9". We love you, short kings, but you ain't that tall. The Republicans are framing this as a win against massive government overreach, and the Democrats are saying that this really won't have a significant impact on the expansion of what the IRS can actually do. So as with all things in Washington, there's a decent amount of political posturing going on here. Fourth, food stamp working requirements. This agreement increases the number of adults who are required to work in order to receive food stamps. Currently, childless, able-bodied adults ages 18 to 49 are only able to get food stamps for 3 months out of every 3 years unless they are employed at least 20 hours a week. This agreement would increase the upper limit of the mandate to age 55 in phases. This is another one of those compromises that neither side is super happy about. The Democrats say that it's hurting old people, and the Republicans say that it isn't doing enough to incentivize work. Whether this is a step in the right direction or not depends a lot on your beliefs surrounding government public assistance programs. Fifth, student loan repayments. Remember those student loans that got frozen like 3 years ago? Even though some former students have been living in bliss not having to think about them, that time's over, as this bill solidifies borrowers needing to start payments again by the end of the summer. This shouldn't come as a shock because the Biden administration announced the exact same thing a few months ago. But either way, this makes it so that the Biden administration can't move back the restart date of the debt payments again as they've done in the past. Additionally, the bill would leave Biden's loan forgiveness plan in place. But this is a little muddy right now because Biden's plan, which allows for up to $20,000 in loan forgiveness to qualifying borrowers, just got overturned by the Democratically controlled Senate as Joe Manchin, John Tester, and Kyrsten Sinema joined the Republicans to pass a Congressional Review Act that would limit Biden's plan. The president will of course veto this, and the Supreme Court is going to rule on if the debt limit forgiveness plan is constitutional in the next couple of weeks, so this part is still pretty up in the air. But the bill as is currently constituted will leave Biden's income-driven repayment plan in place, which is a big boost for people who want to get a fancy university's name next to theirs, only to realize that they'll owe $150,000 to the university.
I paid $120,000 for someone to tell me to go read Jane Austen, and then I didn't.
Sixth, climate and clean energy initiatives. Finally, and this was a big deal for many on the Democratic side of the aisle, climate and clean energy initiatives like tax credits introduced in the Inflation Reduction Act will remain in place. Republicans were gunning to get rid of these provisions, so you'll be sure to see lots of left-leaning news sources touting this as a big win for the Democrats. The agreement also includes measures in the National Environmental Policy Act, which basically is supposed to make federal decision-making regarding climate change stuff more unified and predictable by designating an agency to headline these decisions. Despite the good news if you're a liberal, things aren't all good for the Democrats. At the same time, this bill greenlights a natural gas pipeline in West Virginia that a lot of Democrats were actively against. This means that the Republicans are still able to claim they got a win out of this whole energy thing. Now, some of you guys might be wondering who won this negotiation, and I would say that America did. No, really, there's a lot of stuff in the bill that Democrats are going to point to say that they won, like the student loan repayment stuff and the climate and clean energy measures. And there's a lot of stuff that the Republicans are going to point to, such as the IRS money reduction and the work requirements for food stamps. Even still, the ultimate winners are the United States and the world. For avoiding a cataclysmic situation in which the government didn't raise the debt ceiling, the stock market crashed, and the world descended into chaos. Then again, I don't know if that's really a win as much as it's just not a loss. The impact of this bill likely won't be felt immediately by the majority of Americans. The clean energy tax credits were already in place, and the IRS cracking down on tax dodgers hopefully won't affect any of you guys because you're all going to be keeping the law and paying your taxes, right? Even still, if this bill hadn't gotten passed, we really would have felt the results. If you're wondering what that would have looked like, make sure to check out this video on my channel about what would have happened if the debt ceiling wasn't raised. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more awesome business content, and I'll see you guys next time.